Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something really interesting based on your curiosity, the 1878 novel Seola.
Right, by Annalisa Brainard Smith, though she wrote as Mrs. J. Gregory Smith.
Exactly. And you want to explore her intellectual depth and also that later revision, Angels and Women. So let's get right to it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating path a book can take. Annalisa Brainard Smith herself, she wasn't just anyone.
No, definitely not. Wife and mother of Vermont governors, right? And a documented hero during the Civil War.
That's right, the St. Albans raid. She received an honorary commission. It speaks volumes about her character, her courage and intellect, really.
Absolutely. An important context. Before Seola, she wrote a nonfiction book, From Dawn to Sunrise.
Ah, yes, 1876, a review of religious ideas, history, philosophy.
And it was incredibly well received. People literally called it the smartest book ever written in Vermont.
Which is quite the statement. And it shows she was already deep into these themes: creation stories, geological time, ancient races.
Even the idea of angels marry women, the flood, comparative mythology, serpent worship, all things that echo in Seola.
Precisely. It proves she had serious scholarly interests before writing the novel.
So Seola itself, let's clarify the premise because it's not 19th century Vermont.
No, not at all. It's presented as a diary, supposedly written by Japhet's wife, Noah's daughter-in-law.
Okay, set in the world before the Great Flood.
Right. A world with humans, but also these materialized angels called divas in the book.
And their intermingling leads to wickedness.
Exactly. Corruption spreads, and Seola's family is trying to hold on to their faith amidst it all, leading up to the deluge.
A really grand, epic kind of setting. You mentioned some specific clues in the text suggesting her research was deep.
Yeah, little details that make you think, like the early mention of the Phoenician letter Daleth.
Daleth. What's the significance there?
Well, she notes it means door, and correctly links it phonetically and semantically to the Hebrew Dalet, the Greek delta, even the Latin D.
Wow. That's quite specific linguistic knowledge for an 1878 novel.
Yeah, it is. It suggests she was either doing meticulous research or had access to contemporary scholarship, much like we saw with From Dawn to Sunrise. And maybe door has thematic weight, a door to the past.
Or maybe a way out.
Interesting.
Then there are the caves, Ellora and Elephanta.
In India. Yes, bringing these actual archaeological sites into an antediluvian narrative is quite a leap.
Describe them briefly?
Sure. Elephanta has these incredible rock-cut caves dedicated mainly to Shiva, including the famous Trimurti sculpture. Ellora is even more vast Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain temples carved side by side.
And the listener mentioned a peculiar cross linked to them in the book.
Right. Now, there isn't a Christian cross central to Shiva iconography, but maybe she meant the Trishula, Shiva's trident, or perhaps the swastika, an ancient symbol found there, or even the ground plan of some caves, like Ellora's Cave 29, which can be seen as cruciform.
So it's ambiguous, but the inclusion itself is what's striking.
Oh, exactly. It shows this broad global awareness of ancient sacred places and myths. It fits perfectly with her known interest in comparative religion. Maybe she was hinting at some universal truths or a shared primordial past connecting these distant sites.
And it makes you think, okay, another figure, Seth.
Yes. In the Bible, he's Adam's son, Noah's ancestor. But in Seola, he's much more.
How so?
He's called a great sage, the inventor of writing characters, and he supposedly built these inscribed pillars to preserve history before the flood.
Now, where does that come from? Not the Bible, right?
Not directly about Seth himself inventing writing or those specific pillars, but the historian Josephus mentions Seth's descendants as astronomers who built pillars to preserve knowledge.
Okay, so a connection there.
And then you have the Egyptian god Thoth, god of wisdom, inventor of writing, often shown with an ibis or baboon head.
Thoth? Any link to pillars?
Yes. There are legends about Thoth preserving ancient wisdom, sometimes specifically on pillars or tablets before a great flood.
Ah, so Smith might be blending traditions.
It seems very likely. A deliberate syncretism, combining the Hebrew Seth figure with attributes of the Egyptian Thoth to create this archetype of antediluvian wisdom and preservation. It shows her familiarity with different mythologies again.
So these pillars of knowledge are a powerful symbol she tapped into.
Definitely. Preserving wisdom from cataclysm, it's a resonant idea in many old traditions.
How did Smith herself describe writing Seola?
It's interesting. She said it came to her as a fantasy, revealed while listening to musical composition, almost like pure inspiration.
Okay.
But she also asserted that its core theory is in strict accordance with Hebrew and traditions of other ancient nations. So a mix of inspired fantasy and, well, scholarly grounding.
Okay, let's shift gears to the 1924 revision. Angels and Women. Big changes, right?
Huge context shift. This was picked up years later by the Bible student movement, which evolved into the Jehovah's
It
Witnesses.
was edited.
Yes. The revision was apparently suggested by the movement's founder, Charles Case Russell, before he died. He saw how Seola's themes, fallen angels, the pre-flood world, seemed to fit Genesis chapter 6.
But Russell didn't actually edit it.
No, he died in 1916. The actual revision and publication in 1924 happened under his successor, J.F. Rutherford, with added material by Rutherford and Clayton J. Woodworth. The publisher, the A.B. Abach Company, was likely linked to the movement too.
What was the Bible student movement like in the 1920s?
Very focused on Bible prophecy, specific chronological interpretations, rejecting doctrines like the Trinity and hellfire. Russell's studies in the scriptures were central. Rutherford was consolidating control, and they were very strongly against spiritism or anything seen as demonic influence.
How did that influence the way they presented Smith's novel?
The new editorial foreword in Angels and Women is revealing. They emphasize her musical inspiration, maybe making her sound like just a passive channel.
What else?
There's a pretty problematic line suggesting women are more susceptible to seductive influences. And the editor flat out gives his opinion that the book was likely dictated by a fallen angel, which fits their anti-spiritism agenda perfectly.
But didn't her first book prove her knowledge?
Exactly. The foreword claims she has little Bible knowledge, which from dawn to sunrise completely disproves. It's demonstrably false.
So why republish it with this framing? What was their stated purpose?
To interest Bible students, basically, to illustrate what they saw as demonic activities before the flood, align the story explicitly with Genesis 6, and serve as a stark warning against spiritism.
Did they change the actual story much?
Some names were changed. Seola became Aloma, her city Sappara became Bologna. Smith's original preface was gone, replaced by Rutherford's introduction and Woodworth's appendix. Based on what we know, the core narrative seems mostly intact, but
But the frame changes everything.
completely. It shifts the interpretation fundamentally. What might have been Smith engaging with broad Victorian intellectual currents, mythology, science, theology, gets narrowed down into a cautionary tale, viewed solely through the specific theological lens of the early Watchtower Society.
So summing up, Annalisa Brainard Smith.
Clearly an intelligent, capable, and courageous woman. From dawn to sunrise proves her scholarly depth before she wrote Seola.
And Seola itself seems like a complex novel for its time,
Yeah, reflecting those Victorian interests, weaving together research and imagination,
whereas Angels and Women.
is really a reappropriation. The Bible student movement used her story for their own theological purposes, heavily influenced by their doctrines and, frankly, some gender bias, obscuring her original context and likely intent.
Interesting that there's still some interest, like that potential film project, Seola's Journal.
It shows the core story still resonates somehow, even if niche.
So the final thought for you, the listener, it really shows how context, culture, and editorial choices can drastically reshape how we see a work.
Absolutely, especially for voices that might have been marginalized already. It makes you wonder, what other forgotten or reframed stories are out there waiting for us to look past the later interpretations and find the original spark?